Okay, it's showtime. Listen, Buzzball, don't even mess with me on this, all right? You saw the thumbnail, damn it. No, I'm not, and I'm not tardy. I'm not one bit tardy. Oh, I'm tardy. All right, I was 30 seconds tardy. Sorry, everybody. Look, I was watching hype videos. I was watching the Texans hype video from this year with JJ Watt. We're gonna play that in a little bit. I assume most of you watching this have seen it. If you're a Colts fan here via the algorithm, you can go die. I don't care. So I'll probably chop it up a little bit so I can react to it second and third and fourth time. But I was also watching the Brian Cushing playoffs hype video, which was equally good. Cushing's got a little bit more of the natural psycho in him than JJ. So JJ's got a tempered psycho, whereas Cushing is closer to being on the brink all the time. So for the hype video, that one really got me going for the playoffs last year, and including the playoffs started with a playoff game versus the Colts. The Colts, who gifted the Texans CJ Stroud 2 years ago by not just losing in the final game of the season, but also tying the Texans in the first game of the season. So it just locked them right in there to number 2 instead of number 1 or number 3. And who knows? Maybe the Texans would have drafted CJ Stroud number 1 overall, but we'll never know. So thank you to the Colts. That's all we'll say. What are you talking about, Buzzball? There must be a huge delay right now. I've been talking about you already. So now I'm deeply offended. So I asked some of you on a community post exactly who you were most concerned about in this game. And it's interesting because so far, Jonathan Taylor has 52% of the votes and Anthony Richardson has 42%. I threw DeForest Buckner in there, and I was a little bit disappointed that the defensive lineman only got 6%, but that's understandable. I'm gonna show you one negative play from last year, and it doesn't feature necessarily a whole lot of guys from this year that I'm worried about. So this is a few select plays from last season from the Colts to get an idea for what we're concerned about. And I'm not doing any chalk talk on this or anything because it tends to get chopped up. But this was the Jonathan Taylor touchdown run. And I want you to watch because we're going to talk a little bit about RPOs, run pass option. Shane Steichen was a master with it in Philadelphia. He left to go to the Colts last year, and Philadelphia fell apart. Jalen Hurts all of a sudden looked like a high school quarterback, and their RPO game was almost non-existent. One of the things that they'd done really well, they just moved away from because they were so bad at it. Last night, we saw in the Eagles game, they started getting that back. When you got a guy like Saquon Barkley, that helps a lot. But one thing that defenses are doing is on RPOs, they really want those linebackers. So you see all 3 of those Texans linebackers standing at the 45. Pay no attention to that blitzer because unfortunately he ends up being inconsequential in this play. But right here where the quarterback is making the decision on whether to hand the ball off or not, those linebackers are sitting back. They're waiting. They want to be sure that they don't bite too early and the quarterback keeps it and passes it, because watch that tight end that's right at the top of the stupid white helmet. Because what happens is if those linebackers crash too hard, that's when you open up all those slants over the middle. The problem with these Texans linebackers, and you can see Cashman right there, is that they were still a little too slow to recognize. You had Christian stuck on a block there, and then you miss in the open field, and you end with what we had there that day, which is not a good thing. So I feel better, honestly, about like right now, if I had to choose between not having Alshire or not having Christian Harris in this game, I would actually choose not to have Christian Harris. I think Alshire is going to be a huge key to games exactly like this, where you have to worry about not just the run, but the run pass option, mobile quarterbacks making all those decisions, all the misdirection that Shane Steichen executes really well. And I'd feel very, very good about that. By the way, thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this video if I didn't thank them already. And so Alshire is going to be a big key in this game. Alshire is a guy that I hope to watch a lot without even having to work at it, because he's going to be very active and be making a lot of plays. But Henry To'oTo'o alongside him, and then Jalen Petrie, who as the nickelback is basically playing linebacker a lot. Those guys are really key in this game tonight. If we go and look at when you add the element of an Anthony Richardson to it. With Gardner Minshew, he can run, but he's not a huge run threat. Anthony Richardson, if you watch this first play, I just threw 3 on here, and I can't even remember which order. They got a whole lot of human beings right up there at the line of scrimmage, and decides to pull the ball down, and when he starts running off here, look, you got 2 wide receivers, well, a wide receiver and a tight end, 2 wide receivers out on routes. You've got a tight end coming to block the end man on the line of scrimmage. And you basically, because Richardson is such a good runner, you've got 4 skill position guys right there with three defensive players, and it puts you in a real bind. The big thing that screwed up there was 2 defensive backs ended up covering Alec Pierce there in the end zone. So it's really a matter of just being super, super disciplined on your routes. I didn't mean to keep his celebration in there. Same play here. There we go. Okay, so the way they can balance this up a little bit differently, you see a lot of the look, you got a pull and guard, pass is quick there. The offensive linemen don't know whether it's a run or a pass. That's another thing that's made the RPO a little bit less effective is that the officials have really cracked down on illegal man downfield. So these offensive linemen, they got a run block, but without trying to drive guys past 1 yard because they don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass, and that takes a little juice out of it. But it's also a key for the linebackers. So again, going back to Alshire, that's big. The thing that Richardson can do that Gardner Minshew really couldn't is just this, where it's just a called designed run, or it's a version of RPO in that you don't have the classic RPO action or zone read action. It's just that he's got a green light at any given time to pull the ball down and go. And Shane Steichen just does a really good job with that. So as much as it is a physical battle versus the run, it's also very much a mental battle. And that's where Alshire is just key and foremost in this. The other big key when we're talking about Jonathan Taylor is something that D'Amico talked about the other day, and something that I saw evidence of in the preseason is just simply they have to be a better tackling team. They missed a boatload of tackles, and I think it's kind of cool in year 1 where you're all swarm mentality and like, all right, here we go. They're just gonna fly. Well, have 8 guys at the ball every time, and even if you miss a tackle, you got more guys behind you. All right, that's cool pep talk stuff, but they had to hone up the tackling. And I think a lot of people, coaches sometimes fall into this trap. They think you can only work on tackling so much without being able to tackle in practice or without wearing pads. And that's just bogus. Like, you don't need pads at all. I had a coach who in my 5th year in the NFL transformed me as a player, Frank Gant Sr., because he taught me how to genuinely tackle for the first time in my life after having played God knows how many years of football before that, 13, 14, 15 years of football. It was the first time I actually got good quality tackling instruction. And it was me working with him in the spring, like going out, it's probably illegal, but like based on the CBA and everything. But I'd go out with him after I worked out every day and just spend like 10 or 15 minutes with him in the spring. And it changed me as a player. I was a completely different player. And D'Amico, I think, took that approach. They've been doing a lot of tackling drills out there, using those big, weird rolling balls and everything that they have. So those are the guys, Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, obviously. Those guys are key. When it comes to the defensive players, DeForest Buckner I listed just because him and Grover there in the middle are both they're very good. They're a very good tandem of defensive tackles. And the Texans have 2 guys in Juice Scruggs and Kenyon Green that are very young. And Kenyon Green's been tested, but it was back in his rookie year when he faced that gauntlet of like 5 of the best defensive tackles in the league, and he was playing banged up and injured. He looked completely different physically. But just as a reminder, this is DeForest Buckner. He's the right defensive tackle going up against Kendrick Green last year. And Kendrick Green's got short arms. DeForest Buckner's got really long arms. And you can see Buckner holds off Kendrick Green with one arm. Number 90 there for the Colts, did a really good job as well. But right defensive tackle right here, DeForest Buckner, you just watch his length and how effectively he uses it and just engulfs people. That's the guy that both in the run game and the pass game I'm not overly like I'm feeling almost like ridiculously overconfident probably going into this game. I feel really good about the Texans in this game. I look, I locked in the Texans when they were -1, and they're up to -3 right now. The public is heavy in on the Texans. Sometimes that's a sign that the public is overconfident. I think they're just taking a look at the fact that they've got these ridiculous receiving threats. So the over's 48.5 on this. I went in and I locked in the over because I feel very, very good about this game. I feel I just don't know what the Colts defense can do to actually defend all of the receiving threats for the Texans. So you're going to bet US and use the promo code YouTube150 and you'll get a 150% deposit on your first deposit up to $2,000. Crazy good deal. Really great site. Very quick payouts. You get your own personalized account manager. It's good stuff. I think, let's see, Inferno style. I think the offense will be fine, but I am a little concerned about how our defense can contain AR and JT. Yeah, I feel like that will decide this game will be a shootout or a blowout. Okay, the blowout. I guess if it's a blowout, I highly doubt that it would be a blowout at the hands of the Colts. I think the other thing, and maybe I'm guilty of this because I showed you some Anthony Richardson highlights, is that it's not a slam dunk that every time he pulls down and runs that it's a touchdown or a long gain or something. There's plenty of plenty of plays where teams defended them effectively. It's just about playing your responsibilities. I think a lot of people have concerns about the defensive tackles. The defensive tackles last year weren't nearly as much of an issue in my mind against the run in the Colts specifically as the linebackers were. And we've talked ad nauseum just in this stream alone about how much better I feel about Alshire and how much he can make everybody else better. I feel very good about Jalen Petrie and where he is right now. So the question for the Colts, if they're going to stop the Texans passing attack, we'll talk about the run in a minute. If we're going to talk about the Texans passing attack, Bobby can scheme up the pass protection. I don't mind keeping an extra guy in to block. I could do 7-man protection and still feel good that the 3 guys that are out on routes are gonna find openings. So that's something that Bobby can figure out as the game goes along. It's really a matter of can they complement the passing game with the run game. That's where DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart really matter. Leatu is their defensive end that they drafted this year in the first round. I like that kid. I think Laramie Tunsil's going to have a really good day versus him. I mean, Laramie Tunsil has, shut down Myles Garrett numerous times, and Myles Garrett is no slouch against the run or the pass. And take your pick of Micah Parsons or anybody else. Leatu might become one of those guys, but he's not there yet, and he's not nearly as strong as physically as a Myles Garrett. So it's really about the interior offensive line right now. So this is where Joe Mixon in just making the offensive line better. I hate that damn function with a thumbs up, but all right, making the offensive line better, but also. The zone run game, if you're doing it properly, you don't need to physically overpower the defensive tackles. You've just got to be really good with your timing, and you've got to know how to get an angle on a guy and either take him where he wants to go or pivot on him, and then Joe Mixon can do the rest. But as long as Joe Mixon is healthy, I feel pretty good that they'll have a credible rushing attack. When the Colts play zone and play back and play coverage because they're worried about all of the receiving threats, there will be light boxes. It's just that they've got to be just good enough to create some creases for Joe Mixon. But it's it's going to be good. All right, let's see. Colts are the kind of team that makes me nervous about overexcited defensive linemen. They need to rush with discipline. With Anthony Richardson, not to make a direct Lamar Jackson comparison or anything, it's not the scrambling that I worry about as much. It's the designed stuff. So it's designed runs and it's rollouts. It's easy to be disciplined against the rollouts. It's not as easy to be disciplined against the designed runs. but it's also and you're at a numbers disadvantage. You've got one guy that would be a running back out there on the field who's a blocker. You've got because your quarterback's the running back. So that's the toughest part for me. But just like Lamar Jackson, like the real threat with Lamar is on some of the design stuff for the RPO more so than the scramble. Lamar's just really good with his pocket awareness, his pocket movement. He moves around within the pocket really well. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But it's yes, I am doing the pregame show tomorrow. So 3 hours before game time, Sean will be on 9 a.m. or so. Usually run games open up the passing game. Would you say maybe we're the opposite? Our pass game way open the run. And I think that's more, I don't want to say it's the standard in the NFL anymore, but it's very, very common. The pass game opens up the run game. And the thing about, I think sometimes where the cliche gets people in trouble is when people talk about establishing the run. These days, it's not necessarily, when they say that, it's not to set up the pass game completely, but it is something that you have to do in complement with a play action attack. So if you even if you're not running the ball well, like the Texans last year, they were horrible at rushing the football, but because they were committed to running the ball and the defense had to respect that, it did open up the play action. There's a psychological element there too. And that's why it's so hard to get the linebackers to play with discipline in the RPO game, because you're naturally eager to go stop the run and you got to just train yourself out of it. And it's almost like being an attack dog, learning not to, chase poodles. You've got to force it out of you. And human nature, not everybody does it well. So when you're trying to set up the play action, you've got to run then, but you don't have to actually run effectively. It helps because then it's easier to convert those third downs, but to actually set up the play action opportunities, you don't have to do it. It's counterintuitive, I know. Anthony Richardson is not the issue. It's their damn coach, Steichen. I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you look at Jalen Hurts, and look, it was week one. There's time for teams to pick up on tendencies and everything. But for one, I think Kellen Moore is just probably going to be an improvement in terms of actually executing their RPOs. And Saquon Barkley helps a lot as well. So I would say it's a combination when we talk about Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and Shane Steichen. Steichen does some pretty cool stuff. And defenses are catching up to the RPO, but guys like Mike McDaniel in Miami, when he's got the weaponry that he does, defenses are still having a really hard time figuring it out. They're like averaging 9 yards per play on RPOs or something absurd. 9 yards per pass attempt on RPOs. It's sick, whatever it is. Let's see. Lamar's strategy is to read the D and then run the ball right. Yeah, he's got a good feel for what coverage is going on downfield and whether it's time to run or not. That's why Spagnuolo does a good job of A, disguising, but then B, people complain that he doesn't run enough versus the Chiefs. He ran the ball 16 times, but part of it is Spagnuolo knows how to give Lamar the looks where Lamar's not going to run and where he shouldn't run necessarily. And that's like, I would imagine D'Amico is watching that game, the Kansas City game, with a keen eye, not just for the future matchup, but also to get ideas for what Spagnuolo does against Lamar Jackson. And kind of like with Lamar Jackson, I think that Anthony Richardson he's kind of got a green light to turn anything into an RPO. So even on a lot of plays, he's still looking for the edge player out of the corner of his eye, or he's looking at the coverage, and it can turn into an RPO even though it looks nothing like an RPO. Who else saw the Case Keenum backup progressive commercial? I saw it. I was disappointed he didn't have any lines, really, right? He just kind of he nodded and went in. I want him to get a gig as a progressive spokesperson, like Flo, so he can have like a 20 or 30 year career as a spokesperson. He could probably still coach and do that. Yeah, the secondary. So the Colts secondary, that's their weakness, and that's where I think their Texans, if they have improved their rushing attack, they'll have opportunities, because Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator for the Colts, he's not aggressive by nature. They don't blitz a whole lot. They had a lot of sacks last year, but it was kind of fluky because they didn't actually get a boatload of pressures or hurries or on the ESPN win rate. But when they blitzed, they were very, very effective, partly because there's a little bit of an ambush element there. And I think Bradley does a good job of disguising the blitz. Remember when CJ got sacked in week 18, that was by a defensive back, if I recall correctly, that came from deep. So it was play action. CJ had his back to the line of scrimmage, and that defensive back didn't show any signs of blitzing, came from deep, and he was able to get CJ. So, yeah, I mean, that is the weakness. You guys, I think some of you, because I talk about the strengths of the opponent, tend to think that I'm being negative or something. Not one bit. That's the same thing that every player, every coach does. So I'm not worried about that. Let's show of hands. How many of you have actually seen the Texans hype video by this point? I'm guessing that like 75% of you have, and I don't want the live stream to get shut down by a copyright strike. So I'm going to just turn this into like a kind of like a reaction video type of thing and play it, but I'm going to stop it a few times. If you let the thing run through, they recognize that you're just somebody trying to profit off the labors of others. And I would never want to go over there.
You hear that, Houston?
I hear it.
Silence. Sometimes that silence can be deafening. But in that void, there's a whisper of what's to come. A pulse reverberating.
So it's that building action with the music. A little bit of a drop and then a little bit more. I like the fog rolling in over the city.
To the city.
I don't like it that much because we've had some weather events in Houston.
It grows stronger by the second.
And they make the highway system look almost like a thing of beauty.
You can feel it in the air. A rumbling. An anxiety. That feeling in the pit of your stomach. Echoes of expectations.
Okay, that part got me. Remember after was that after the Colts game or the Cleveland game? After the playoffs game. But that was big. And then CJ came in after that. Oh, I'm getting all like teary-eyed almost just thinking about it. Johnny Lambo. Okay, good. I don't feel bad about stopping this. Johnny, you're giving me the go ahead to just go stop and start on this thing. But this, and then when they were celebrating afterwards in the locker room, that was intense, man. It was the Colts game. That's right, because they used this in the playoff hype video too from last year. You're like a chicken. No Texans tangents. It's a copyright thing, man. I can't help it.
Echoes of expectations.
Then there's this team in Houston. They brought in Stephon Diggs. They bring in Joe Mixon. Well, we got massive respect for what they got going on.
It's an
that's an own right there. You hear that, Pat McAfee? You are on the Houston Texans hype reel leading into the game versus the Colts. Oh, he so wants to be a Texan.
Sensation, and you can't shake it. I've felt it before. I know what it's like.
Dalton throws it. It's intercepted. 1, 10, 5. Touchdown, Texans. And Reliance Stadium has erupted.
Okay, the Colts game. Earlier in this video, or excuse me, the Bengals game, the playoffs game. Remember earlier in the video, the camera was shaking a little bit when he said that you could feel it. I was watching that game in a bar, like in upstate New York, and it was cold as hell outside. It was crowded. My wife and I were the only ones watching the Texans game, and I swear, it was almost like they had the volume on because I had asked for it. But it was like you could feel it coming through the stupid old cathode ray TV tube in a bar in the middle of nowhere in New York. It was really cool. That was fun, man.
The energy, the speculation, the expectations.
What do you think of the Texans' hype?
Expectations from the out.
Hold on. I gotta take that Bet US thing off of there. Okay, more copyright violations.
Outside have gone through the roof.
They have a target on their back.
Well, listen, the hype, that's just chatter.
It doesn't matter what people say on the outside about the men in this room.
They're pretty steadfast in not listening to the outside noise.
In the end, we're the Houston Texans, so we can't worry about what happened last year.
Because around here, success isn't homes, it's leased. And rent, that shit's due every damn day. We're relentlessly focused on one.
Okay. I didn't realize he said the S word there. We played this on the radio before I had watched the video, and it just slipped this because we had to edit it out. So I didn't even realize that. I choose to think that when he said, I think his original quote was, that was the quote that's in the Hall of Fame, the one about how success is leased. I feel like it's a little bit of shot at Deshaun too. Remember, Deshaun didn't pay his leases on his cheesesteak joints after he left town. There's some poor Houston landlords out there that never got paid their Deshaun Watson money.
Building this foundation our way. But not only for this team, no. This is for all of H-Town. The heartbeat of this city is what drives this team forward each and every day. So now it's finally time to break that silence and make noise the only way we know how.
Here's it out for Collins. He's got it. Well down. Will Anderson. Stingley with the interception. To the end zone. Touchdown. Houston dominant.
On the damn field. H is up, H-Town.
All right. Okay. I feel real quick. All right. Let's go back. I was waiting to see if it. All right. I'd say like right there. I say he looks like a defensive end right there. Does he not? That's a big dude. I know he's skinnier than he used to be. But that's a big damn dude. That's a defensive end. There's a chance. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened to DeAndre Hopkins. He's trying to play through a torn meniscus or something right now. Yes. One other. Let me just scroll through this. There are another couple parts of this. This part right here. That man. That I'll tell you what. That is one of the coolest things that never gets old. Is all of everything that goes on in the pregame or during the national anthem, fly over by jets or helicopters or anything. It's so freaking surreal. Like I played for 10 years and I never got tired of just sitting there and just looking around, and you got 75,000 people watching this event and you're down there on the field. It's just, it's so cool. And, Tank Dell, I like this. The kid had to work his way up through transferring into U of H and then gets his chance in the NFL. I think he very much appreciates stuff like that. It's cool stuff, man. So let's see. All right, TH, you missed me playing and interrupting the hype video, but just go watch it. I can't believe week 1 is here either. Okay, yes, thank you. I had notes and then I lost them because that's what I do, damn it. Especially game. Poor Sean Pendergast has to deal with my crap all the time. Okay. Anthony Richardson is this is going to be fun. Danielle Hunter has kind of that same element that I showed you with DeForest Buckner, where he's so long that he kind of can envelop people. And Will Anderson, and not to mention all the other defensive ends, they're going to get their share of action tomorrow. What I'm really hoping for, though, is Mario Edwards, especially. I think he has a chance to be a presence in this game, and he's got more. I'm not going to say like pass rush ability in terms of being a sack artist or anything, but I think he's got a very good ability to push the pocket and push Anthony Richardson out to those guys. And there's going to be some really good moments with those guys. I think the Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter thing has almost been kept under wraps. The big guy, and probably the one that I'm going to watch the most keenly, is Kamari Lassiter. Because look, Kamari Lassiter, for whatever reason, Brian Daboll and or Daniel Jones chose not to test the rookie. I almost wonder if Brian Daboll was like, all right, Daniel, I've been watching HBO and I've been listening to this damn general manager all offseason talk about how we're going to find out if the guy that we paid a boatload of money to is worth paying a boatload of money to. I feel like he wanted to see how Daniel Jones could do versus Derek Stingley. But Kamari Lassiter didn't get genuinely tested in that game. As we mentioned earlier, Shane Steichen, very good offensive coordinator. I am I'm very impressed with him. I think that he's going to continue to be a good offensive coordinator. My hope is that somehow he sucks as a head coach. So there's the classic, and then maybe the Texans hire him to bring his own after Bobby Slowick leaves. Who knows? Who knows? I just don't want him to be a good head coach, but he's a good offensive coordinator. He's going to test Kamari Lassiter. So this is going to be fascinating because I don't think Kamari Lassiter is one bit nervous about being tested, nor has any illusions about how much Shane Steichen's going to try to test him. He's got plenty of experience practicing against A.D. Mitchell. So there's that grudge match there. Pittman, obviously, as well. So, I mean, is another test and challenge for him. So that's the guy. And I feel good about it. I think between D'Amico's play calling, Alshire's experience, the rush off the edge, and then the combination of Derek Stingley, who's probably going to have a pretty boring day because they're going to be testing Kamari Lassiter all day. I feel very good about this. I feel great about Jalen Petrie in his new position. I really like having Jimmy Ward out there. I think that's going to be a big difference in a lot of different matchups this year compared to last year. So I bet on the Texans when they were -3. I would bet on them again or I bet on them when they were -1. I would bet on them again if they were right now where they're -3. Lost my bet US there at some point. So that's where we are. And I'm going to try to do a live stream before our pregame show tomorrow. If you're able to, please listen to the pregame show from 9 to noon. And then obviously we have it on Sports Radio 610 during the game. We have the game on Sports Radio 610. You can also listen to it on the Bull, but we don't get the ratings for that. So just go ahead. But those the good people over there at the Bull, like 17 feet down the hall from us over there at Odyssey. 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. Do you think CJ is made up of a different fabric? People were hyping Jordan Love all offseason. He came out and threw several ducks. I don't see CJ panning out the same way. I think the one question I still have about Jordan Love is some of his decision-making, and including just when to throw off his back foot or under pressure, and just even some of the decisions he made last night. And I hope he's okay. Like I do. I would love there to be a battle between Jordan Love and CJ Stroud this year, as two of the bright and upcoming young stars. But the big difference between CJ and Jordan Love, in my mind, last year, without even really looking at the greater consistency of CJ Stroud, was just simply that CJ was a rookie. Like Jordan Love had been in the league for a few years. It wasn't like this kid that was just coming in to learn about the NFL. He got to learn about the NFL from a pretty damn good football player in front of him. So I just and then the ball placement and some of those other things, it's just not quite on the same par. But I do think CJ has a certain calm and grace under fire that very few quarterbacks do have. And that's not a slight at anybody else. It's just obvious and evident in the way that he processes the game mentally. He processes the game mentally better than a lot of 3rd and 4th year quarterbacks, some of the good ones actually too. Stingley doesn't move around, so Pittman might avoid him. Yeah, and as far as, okay, so Stingley shadowing Pittman, this is the one concern I'd have about that, is that, the Texans surprised everybody with that when they did it last year. D'Amico did a really good job of playing coy and acting like they weren't going to do it, and then they did it with Amari Cooper. The Lassiter has been playing on the right side the entire camp, and I don't think you want to mess with that. I don't think he could stay over there, but then that would mean at times he's not on the outside or what have you. I think that's something you can experiment with as the season goes along. I think right now you got to keep it as simple as possible for Kamari Lassiter, especially because that's where his reps have been. Now, maybe they've been doing it when not everybody's out there at practice. That's possible. Underrated guy to look for, British Brooks, a.k.a. the British Bullback, as one of you guys said yesterday. Is it Enos or Eniko? Whatever your guy that starts with an E. British Bullback. That is a little bit of an X factor in this. Does British Brooks, is he active on game day? Is he, unless I missed the Friday. Oh, no, there's no more Friday inactives. All right. Is he active on game day? And if he is active, do they actually use him as a fullback? Very intrigued by that. British Bulldozer. I think I like British Bullback because he's a fullback. And it sounds vaguely sexual, like kind of like in a in such a way that if somebody said like, "Oh, that's dirty," be like, "Where's your mind?" Ugh. You can pull that old trick. Yeah, get your head out of the gutter. But it does. It sounds a little. I don't know. It's because of the bull back, like bear bull back. Yeah, yeah. Save the Stingley. He's shadowing for the playoffs. Stroud comes off as a leader, one that I haven't seen many QBs look like besides Tom Brady. How big is the leadership aspect? That's leadership, culture, all those things that are talked about a lot. I think they tend to get devalued almost because so many people talk about it or credit people as being good leaders when they're not actually. And I think that with CJ, and this goes back to Ryan Day and his support staff at Ohio State. CJ understands the important parts of leadership, I think, more so than a lot of young leaders, or a lot of older leaders or bosses. So I think that first and foremost, the platform he starts on is forming a relationship with everybody on the team and forming a trust, like some kind of a bond where guys trust you and that they know you care about them. And then that's when you can be a taskmaster because that guy knows that you guys both have the same goals and that you care about him as a person. And I think a lot of people try to skip over that step. And then after they get fired or demoted or like one of their employees comes to the workplace with a threatening threat, they realize like, oh, maybe I have to be a little bit different. Tom Coughlin didn't learn that until he was like 60 years old or so, however old he was when he was before he won his first Super Bowl. It takes a long time for some people to learn that. And a lot of the things they think they're doing is just, it's not leading. It's more just bossing around. So I think just CJ gets that part of it. I'll be paying close attention to Bullock. He frees up Petrie so much. Yeah. Oh, Bullock. Okay. That's a great one. Bullock, and how many reps does he get? How much do they trust him? That's a great one. And if you're going to be opportunistic, look, we talked about earlier stopping the RPO. A lot of that is just, okay, teams are playing more zone to stop the RPO. They want their linebackers and their safeties to be able to kind of keep their eyes in the backfield, not get committed to being in man coverage where your back is away from the line of scrimmage. But when you do that, there's some weaknesses to it, but there's also strengths. When you're playing zone, if you've got a really good pass rush up front, then you can keep your eyes on the quarterback and get in front of a lot of passes. And that's where Kalen Bullock and his ranginess might really come into play this season, but maybe in week one. I genuinely don't know exactly how much they're going to play him, like how much they're comfortable with him. And they might have been playing a little bit of, maybe they're being coy a little bit. Maybe Kalen Bullock goes out there and plays every snap, but they've just been careful to keep him under wraps. I don't know. If Bullock and Lassiter are out there, I could see Steichen trying to find ways to target them. Yeah, and that's where the cat and mouse game comes in. Like, okay, we know that he's going to try to target these guys. So we're the one thing I would wonder about with that is that last year the Texans, the defense didn't disguise or rotate. Like, they didn't rotate their coverages after the snap a whole lot until towards the end of the season. And then they poured it on hardcore versus Joe Flacco. That's how one of the reasons they were able to dupe Joe Flacco so well was because the Texans used a lot more deception than they had before. So now that your veteran players have been in the defense for a year, I would expect them to pick up where they left off. It's never that simple, but pick up where they left off in terms of some of the disguise stuff. And the biggest question is, okay, but can Lassiter and Bullock handle that? And if they can, then that helps prevent Steichen from being able to pick on him as easily. Murray Moore, yeah, but Bullock may come in and during certain packages. I think that's probably what it's probably gonna be like. Am I wrong for being pessimistic about Jimmy Ward? I think that I don't think you should be pessimistic about him, other than you should be concerned about whether he can stay healthy or not. He's been banged up a lot, and he's in his 30s now, so that's the way it goes. Justin Verlander. Are you concerned about Justin Verlander? I am. I think he's going to be pitching fine by October, but I'm concerned about him because I don't know if he's going to be healthy all the way through October. This is what happens when you get older. I'm 49. It's not old. It's older. Somi adds Seth. I don't know what that means. Jimmy Ward is a Super Bowl starter for Miners. But he is a little older for the Niners. Okay, but he's a little older. Can we go British Bulldog? Suits him. You guys can call him whatever you want until he copyrights it. Yeah. I hope he plays. I don't want him to buy a trademark. It's more expensive than you think to buy a trademark. It's like it's like $500 or so, and that's if you do it yourself on LegalZoom. I can't even remember what I was going to trademark, but I was like, well, that I know I'm not going to follow through on this business idea that I want to trademark. So no, bro. Let's see. Foley Fatukasi and Mario Edwards will start, but other guys will rotate in. Unless I'm wrong, But and actually, okay, it depends on what package they start in. If they start out, it might be different. If the Colts come out and they've got two tight ends, or if they've got a fullback and a tight end in the game or something, then it's going to be those two guys. If they come out with three wide receivers, it might be a different rotation. I mean, at that point, you might. Depending on what they come out in, you could see any number of different defensive ends or tackles at defensive tackle. Yeah. I had mentioned Danico Autry just about. I had mentioned Danico Autry earlier, just as looking out at the whole season. He's suspended for the first 6 games of the season. I'm trying not to be that guy, but I'm hoping I don't have to flip a table tomorrow when we have to punt because the team is working Dameon Pierce. It's something to watch. All right, but listen, man. Listen, Mike. I hit the reset on this. I hashed it out with Nick. I should do a reaction to my own video when Sean and I interviewed Nick the other day, and I had Nick and I probably. I think we kind of went back and forth, not arguing, but kind of just counterpoint on some of the aspects of Dameon Pierce. And Nick flat out said he thinks the weight thing has been overblown. And I know that Nick's not sitting in his office listening to our show, but I know he listens at times, and I feel like he probably is aware of me and my concerns about Dameon in his weight and his body weight. One thing Nick said was that he's not that much lighter than he said he's not really that much lighter than he was his rookie year. And I pushed back and I said, for one, it's just, that 5 pounds can make a big difference. And two, because Nick was talking about how his body composition is just different. And he's strong and he retained his strength and all that. And my contention has always been just force equals mass times acceleration. Like ballast matters. There's just body weight helps, man. Just leaning against dudes. There's a strength that comes with just being a big old the lumberjack of a dude. And at the running back position, especially when people are trying to tackle you, the mass matters. So we'll see. But I hit the reset button on it. I'm waiting to see. If you think about in the 4 games that have been played, or the 2 games that have been played by 4 teams so far in the NFL season, I wonder if you go through the box score from the first game. I want to say that the second most carries by a non-quarterback on each team was by a wide receiver. I mean, there's as good a chance tomorrow that the backup running back gets fewer carries than the wide receivers in total with end arounds or lining Nico up in the backfield or something. So when injuries aren't a factor, I'm not as concerned about it because as much of the run game these days is about end arounds and everything else like that. So we'll see. You felt the intensity. I don't know. Was it intense? I didn't think it was all that intense. I thought that we were like Nick and I can go back and forth playfully. We respect enough. The biggest one. It got picked up on Twitter. Like one little snippet of it got picked up on Twitter and they painted me like I was the jerk in it. And it was just Nick and I. We kind of jab at each other some. But, oh, gosh. Something came up where Nick had taken a jab at me, but something about how these defensive tackles are, they're a lot different than old Seth Payne back in the day, and that's why you went in the 4th round. And I was like, well, I went in the 4th round, but I was a hell of a lot better as a rookie than Kenyon Green was, and you drafted him in the 1st round. And Nick laughed, like he laughed his ass off at it. But like it got picked up and it looked like I was trying to act like I was the shit or something. When in fact, I was going back and forth with Nick and saying something that was true. As a rookie, but Kenyon Green has the physical potential to be much better than I was as a player. I was just better as a rookie. Damn it. Okay. Just kidding. Pierce can be good, but he doesn't fit anymore. Yeah. I mean, it was a limited sample size. It was just practice. Like he looked good in practice. All that. We just won't know until we see, man. We just won't know. Only one question needs to be answered tomorrow. Can the Texans offense run the football when they need to? Yep. We talked about that earlier, Cosmo, and I agree. That is first and foremost offensively the only thing I'm concerned about. I very much respect the Colts defensive tackles. I think they're really, really good. But Bobby Slowick can scheme up protection well enough to limit those guys. And that's if they need to. So that's the other big part of this is Drew Scruggs and Kenyon Green. We haven't really seen them out there with an offense that's game planned for the defense. In the preseason, there's not a lot of game planning. I'm not making excuses for anybody. It's never a really clean picture or look or scouting report. But they've got their hands full. Kenyon Green and Drew Scruggs have their hands full. But the Texans, they showed all last year when they were playing with 4 backup offensive linemen for a chunk of time. Bobby did a good enough job of scheming up the protection, and using extra bodies is okay when everybody's healthy and you've got an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. If you've only got 2 of those wide receivers out there, you're still way better off than most teams. And so I'm not worried about that. But it's, can they run the ball effectively? Is DeForest Buckner getting into the backfield? I feel fine with Laramie Tunsil on Leatu Latu. I think Leatu Latu is probably going to end up being a really good defensive end, but he's still a rookie and he's going against one of the very best offensive tackles in the league, who I hope after watching football the last couple of nights is going to be very mindful of his alignment and false starts and whatnot. Yeah, I just said, John, okay, are you responding to somebody else? Did I not just say that they're awesome? John, explain yourself. Are you talking to somebody else? Because I feel like you're not listening or you're drunk. Or if you're you're from Indianapolis. All right. Somebody's typing that. You're doing voice to text, aren't you? If that's what the deal is. Yeah. Like, seriously. What? I said, I think DeForest Buckner is awesome. I said Grover Stewart is awesome. I think they're one of the best interior defensive lines in the league. But if you even know your own team, do you understand that there was kind of an anomaly that they had? I'm sorry, you're from Indianapolis. It was kind of a rare exception that they had as many sacks as they did because they didn't actually consistently rush the passer as well as the sack total would suggest. As far as Leatu Latu, if you're calling him one of the best defensive ends in the league, then welcome to NFL football for the first time in your life. All of the best pass rushers in the league tend to have single-digit sacks their rookie seasons. It's a slow burn. You go through Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, the other Watt, Nick Bosa. They're not awesome even in their first year. Hall of Fame caliber dudes. So just get out of here. Oh, okay. Sorry, John Hendricks. I thought you were from here. Let me take that off there. So just any other random Colts fan. Y'all are both pretty, don't fight. Pretty or petty? I'll take either. Correct that flatland hillbilly. That's where Indiana people get mad at me when I call them hillbillies, and they'll point out that, actually, we're quite boring topographically. We have a plain and lackluster landscape that tends to drive people insane or to date their sisters. But we are not hillbillies. It's a disgusting region of the country. Let's see. Sorry, John. It's John. Whatever I said to you, just because I knew in my head that I've seen you before. I've answered your comments before, but it's late and I'm drunk with overconfidence about this game tomorrow. Here we go. Pierce might get 130 yards on 30 times. Stop it! I don't want to be laughing at Dameon Pierce. I want him to prove me wrong. I'll remind everybody that I was very much more about Derrick Henry than Saquon Barkley this offseason. It was a good game by Saquon Barkley. It was a very good game by Saquon Barkley. He looked damn good. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, man, he looked good. And I don't want him. The only way I could be right is because I am concerned about, he doesn't have a horrible history of missing a lot of games, but when he is injured, it tends to affect his play. But I don't want him to get injured either. Plus, I kind of want I really want Joe Shane, the GM of the Giants, to really just have to eat his words over and over again. After he convinced his owner and everybody else in his organization that Daniel Jones was the key to this thing, not Saquon Barkley. Not Saquon Barkley. We gotta do everything we can to find out if a player is good before we retain the good player. All right. Thanks to BetUS for sponsoring the video. I will try to do a short live stream, better organized after I find my notes before the pregame show tomorrow. But if I don't, tune into the pregame show on Sports Radio 610. Thanks to BetUS again for sponsoring the video. If you go to BetUS and sign up, you get 150% on your first deposit up to $2,000. So if you want to hammer the over like I did at BetUS, go for it, my friends, with what's the code? YouTube 150. The code is YouTube 150. If I said something different, disregard that. It's YouTube 150. I got to get some sleep. I've just been up thinking about stuff, thinking about